It was supposed to be just another quiet Saturday morning. The kind of day where the world feels ordinary until something makes your heart stop. When Claire Monroe stepped into a small thrift store on the edge of town, she wasn't looking for anything special. But on the second shelf of the shoe rack, nestled between a pair of old boots and faded sneakers, she froze. There they were, her son's shoes, the same ones he'd been wearing the night he disappeared, 15 years ago. Claire Monroe was 52 now, her auburn hair streaked with silver, her face lined with years of grief she never wanted to admit. 15 years earlier, her life had been full of noise, her son Ryan's laughter echoing down the hall, his sneakers squeaking on the kitchen tile as he dashed for snacks. Then, one evening in 2010, Ryan never came home from basketball practice. The Monroes lived in a small coastal town where the air always smelled faintly of salt and gasoline from the fishing docks. Everyone knew each other. Everyone noticed everything. And yet, no one seemed to notice what happened to Ryan. Claire never left town. She couldn't. She stayed in the same weathered house with peeling blue shutters, surrounded by fading photographs and a silent bedroom she hadn't touched since he vanished. That morning in the thrift store, Claire had been flipping through a rack of coats when she spotted the sneakers. Black Converse, white soles scuffed and frayed, a faded red lightning bolt doodled on the side. The exact doodle Ryan had made with his marker one bored afternoon. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. The clerk, a young woman chewing gum behind the counter, glanced at her. "You okay?" she asked casually. Claire swallowed hard. Where did these shoes come from? The girl shrugged. Donations. Same as everything else. But Claire knew these weren't just donations. These were his. She bought the shoes without another word, clutching the plastic bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. When she got home, she set them on the kitchen table and just stared. Every scuff, every stain, every curve of the rubber sole. It was like Ryan had just taken them off yesterday. Her ex-husband, Mark, stopped by later that evening. They hadn't spoken much since the divorce, grief having torn them apart. When he saw the shoes, his face drained of color. "Claire, you can't do this to yourself," he muttered, shaking his head. "They are his," she whispered. "I'd know them anywhere." Mark's jaw clenched. He turned away. "It's been 15 years. Don't start this again." But later that night, Claire noticed something else. Inside the left shoe, tucked deep under the insole, was a slip of folded paper. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. The ink was smudged, the handwriting messy but unmistakable. Ryan's. It read, "Mom, if you find this, don't trust him." The words burned into her mind. Don't trust him. But who? The police had combed every lead back then. Coaches, friends, neighbors. Nothing ever stuck. She thought of Detective Harris, the lead investigator who had promised her answers but quietly retired 2 years later. She remembered how he avoided her gaze during their last meeting. And then there was Mr. Keaton, Ryan's old basketball coach. Charming, respected, always overly concerned about Ryan. Too concerned, Claire realized now. The shoes weren't just a relic. They were a message. The next day, Claire returned to the thrift store and pressed the clerk harder. "Who donated those shoes? Do you keep records?" The girl hesitated, then pointed to a back room. "We write names in a ledger, but it's not always accurate." Claire flipped through the dusty book until she found the entry. A man's name scrawled in quick handwriting, David Keaton. Her chest tightened. The coach. That night, Claire drove past the high school gym where Keaton still coached younger kids. Through the window, she saw him pacing the court, barking orders, the same commanding presence he always had. Her stomach churned. Later, she crept closer, hiding in the shadows near the gym entrance. That's when she saw something that made her blood run cold. A young boy, no older than Ryan had been, walked out of Keaton's office wearing a jacket far too big for him. Keaton's hand rested heavily on his shoulder. The boy's eyes darted nervously, as if begging someone to notice. Claire's heart pounded. The shoes weren't just about Ryan. Keaton was still doing something, and maybe Ryan had known. The next day, Claire confronted Keaton directly. She marched onto the court after practice, holding the sneakers in her hands. "These were Ryan's," she snapped, her voice shaking. "Why did your name show up in the donation book?" Keaton's smile faltered for just a second. Then it returned, cool and smooth. "Claire, you've been through a lot. You can't keep clinging to ghosts." But she saw it, the flicker of recognition in his eyes when he glanced at the shoes. "You know something," she said, louder this time. "Tell me where he is." Keaton stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't want to dig into things you don't understand. For your own good, drop it." His hand brushed past hers, gripping the sneakers for just a second before he let go. His touch felt deliberate, threatening. That night, Claire sat in Ryan's untouched bedroom, the shoes clutched against her chest. The slip of paper lay on the bed beside her. Her son's warning echoed in her mind. She couldn't go to the police, not without proof. But she also couldn't ignore what she'd seen. Another boy, another nervous glance, another chance to stop the cycle before it swallowed someone else. Claire knew one thing: she was closer than ever. And Keaton knew she was watching. As the clock struck midnight, Claire whispered into the empty room, as if Ryan could hear her. "I'm not stopping this time." But outside, in the shadows near her driveway, a figure stood watching the house. And when Claire pulled back the curtain, her breath caught. It was Coach Keaton. He was smiling. The night Claire Monroe spotted Coach Keaton outside her window, smiling in the shadows, her world tilted into something darker than grief. She had always imagined Ryan's case as a wound that never healed, a scar she carried quietly. But now it was alive again, bleeding, demanding. The shoes weren't just a memory, they were bait, and Keaton knew she had taken them. Claire shut the curtain quickly, her heart hammering in her chest. By the time she summoned the courage to peek again, the driveway was empty. No footsteps, no car engine, just silence, thick and suffocating. She sat awake until dawn, gripping the sneakers like a shield. By morning, she made a decision. She couldn't do this alone. Her first stop was Mark. Her ex-husband hadn't believed her the first time, but maybe seeing Keaton lurking outside would change things. Mark opened the door, bleary-eyed, coffee in hand. "Claire, it's too early for..." "He was there, Mark," she cut in. "Outside the house. Keaton, watching me." Mark frowned, rubbing his temples. "Claire, you're spiraling again. You need sleep, not this." She shoved the sneakers into his chest. "Then explain the note, Mark. Explain why Ryan wrote don't trust him." Mark's jaw clenched, but he didn't look surprised. Not shocked, just tired, almost guilty. Something about his reaction unnerved her. He handed the shoes back carefully, too carefully. "Claire," he said softly, "there are things I never told you about that night." Her stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" But before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "I have to go. We'll talk later." He shut the door before she could push further. Claire stood there, trembling. Why now? Why keep secrets after 15 years? That afternoon, Claire went to see Detective Harris, the man who'd led the original investigation. He was retired now, living in a modest home on the edge of town. When he opened the door, his face paled at the sight of her. "Claire, I thought you'd moved on." "I found Ryan's shoes," she said flatly, "in a thrift store, with his handwriting hidden inside." Harris swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. He stepped aside slowly. "You'd better come in." Inside, his living room smelled of old coffee and cigarettes. Papers were scattered on the table, newspaper clippings, missing persons reports. Not just Ryan's. Dozens. Claire's eyes darted over the files. "You kept investigating." Harris nodded grimly. "Because I knew something was off. Too many boys. Too many disappearances near Keaton's teams." Her throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" His gaze dropped. "Because I wasn't sure who to trust." Harris leaned closer. "Claire, listen to me. The note, don't trust him. That doesn't just mean Keaton. Your son had discovered something bigger. Something involving people in this town. That's why I had to back off. They made me retire, Claire. Forced me out." Her pulse roared in her ears. "Who's they?" Before Harris could answer, a sharp knock rattled the front door. Both of them froze. Harris whispered urgently, "Go. Out the back. Now." She clutched the sneakers and slipped through the kitchen door just as the front door creaked open. She didn't look back. That night, Claire pieced it together. Harris had files on more than just Ryan. Keaton wasn't working alone. This was a pattern. But the most terrifying realization came when she opened one of Harris's clippings she had snatched before running. It was a photo of another missing boy. Same age as Ryan when he vanished. Same team colors. And the boy's mother? It was Margaret Keaton, the coach's own wife. Claire gasped. Ryan's note, "Don't trust him." Could it have meant more than just the coach? Could it have meant the family? The next evening, unable to hold back, Claire went to confront Margaret Keaton. The Keaton house sat at the end of a quiet street, the porch light casting a warm glow. Too warm, too normal. Margaret opened the door, dressed neatly in a dark cardigan, her smile polite but strained. "Claire Monroe, I didn't expect you." Claire held up the shoes. "I know these came from your house." Margaret's smile didn't falter, but her eyes grew colder. "Then you know you should have left them there." Claire's hands shook. "Where is he, Margaret? Where's my son?" Margaret tilted her head slowly, almost pitying. "Still asking questions you don't want the answers to." Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper, "Leave, while you still can." Claire stumbled back to her car, her mind racing. Margaret knew, Keaton knew, and Mark, her own ex-husband, was hiding something too. This wasn't just about Ryan anymore. This was about a web of secrets, a chain of boys, and a town that had looked the other way. As she drove home, headlights suddenly flared in her rearview mirror. A car was following close. Too close. She pressed the gas. The car sped up too. Her hands clenched the wheel. She turned sharply onto a side road, heart pounding, but the car stayed with her. Finally, it pulled alongside. Claire glanced, and her breath caught. It was Mark. His window rolled down, his face pale in the glow of the streetlights. "Claire," he shouted over the roar of engines. "You don't understand, Ryan's alive." The tires screeched as his car swerved dangerously close to hers. And then, black. The words slammed into Claire harder than any crash ever could. "Ryan's alive." Her ex-husband's voice echoed through her mind, even as her car skidded across the wet pavement. The night split into chaos, tires screeching, headlights spinning, her own heartbeat pounding louder than the engine. And then silence. When she opened her eyes, she was trembling behind the wheel, her car half on the shoulder. Mark's vehicle parked diagonally ahead. His door swung open, and he stumbled toward her, face pale, desperate. "Claire, listen to me," Mark said, breathless, gripping the frame of her window. "We don't have much time. They'll know I told you." She shoved his hands away. "You've had 15 years to tell me, and now you just appear out of nowhere with this? Ryan's alive? Where is he, Mark?" His eyes darted to the trees around them, dark and heavy in the beam of their headlights. "Not here. We can't talk here." "Then when?" she demanded. His jaw clenched. "Tomorrow, noon, by the old lighthouse. Bring the shoes." Before she could press further, he climbed back into his car, engine roaring, and disappeared down the road. Claire sat frozen, her hands still gripping the wheel, knuckles white. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. But Mark had lied before, about little things, about big things. About his late nights at work back when Ryan was still alive. About the fights he swore Ryan never overheard. Could she trust him now? Or was this another manipulation? She stared at the sneakers on the passenger seat. The faded lightning bolt. The note hidden inside. Don't trust him. But who was him? Mark? Keaton? Someone else entirely? The next morning, Claire didn't go to the lighthouse right away. She drove instead to Detective Harris. He looked older than ever when he opened the door, shadows under his eyes. "You shouldn't be here." "Mark says Ryan's alive," Claire blurted out. Harris froze. For a moment, hope flickered in his tired gaze. Then he shook his head. "If Ryan's alive, Claire, then he's in more danger than you realize." "What does that mean?" she pressed. Harris motioned her inside and shut the blinds tight. "Keaton isn't just some small-town predator. There are people protecting him. People higher up. That's why every lead on your son hit a wall." Her stomach twisted. "And Mark?" Harris hesitated. "I can't say. But if he's finally talking, then something's changed. And not for the better." Noon came, and Claire drove to the old lighthouse, sneakers in a bag beside her. Mark was already there, pacing near the crumbling steps. His face lit up when he saw her, but his movements were restless, jittery, like a man carrying too many secrets. "Thank you for coming," he said quickly. "I didn't know how else to." "Stop stalling," Claire cut him off. "Where is Ryan?" Mark exhaled, looking out at the gray waves crashing against the rocks. "I saw him 2 years ago. Not here, at a facility. Somewhere they keep kids who know too much. He wasn't alone, Claire." Her chest tightened. "You're telling me he's been alive all this time, and you didn't say anything?" Mark's eyes filled with regret. "I couldn't. They threatened me. They threatened you." Claire stepped back, anger burning through her grief. "Who's they?" Mark's voice cracked. "Keaton's not the one in charge. He answers to someone else." Mark reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded photograph. His hand shook as he placed it in hers. Claire unfolded it slowly. Her breath caught. It was Ryan. Older now. Taller. His hair longer, eyes sharper. But it was him. He was alive. Standing in what looked like a sterile room, white walls behind him, a barred window in the corner. Claire's tears blurred the image. "Oh, God." Mark grabbed her shoulder. "We can get him back, but we'll need help." Before Claire could respond, a voice echoed across the rocks. "Well," it drawled, "isn't this touching?" They spun around. Coach Keaton stood at the top of the steps, hands in his pockets, eyes gleaming with cold amusement. "Still chasing ghosts, Claire?" Keaton said smoothly, descending slowly. Or did Mark finally grow a conscience? Mark stiffened, stepping in front of Claire. "Leave her out of this, Keaton." Keaton smirked. "Oh, I think she's in this deeper than you ever were." His gaze shifted to the bag in her hand. "You brought the shoes. Good. They were meant to find you." Claire's voice shook. "What do you mean, meant to find me?" Keaton's smirk widened. "Because Ryan wanted you to. He left them for you, Claire. He wanted you to follow." Her pulse roared. "Ryan, alive, trying to reach her. Where is he?" she demanded. Keaton's eyes glittered. "Closer than you think." The tension crackled like the storm brewing above the sea. Mark's fists clenched, Claire's chest heaved. Keaton's smugness only deepened. Then headlights cut through the fog. A black SUV pulled up behind them, its doors opening in eerie unison. Men in dark coats stepped out, faces obscured, movements sharp, deliberate. Claire's stomach dropped. This wasn't just Keaton. This was bigger, much bigger. Mark whispered fiercely, "Run, Claire, now." But before she could move, one of the men raised his hand. And in it, clutched tightly, was something that made Claire's knees buckle. Ryan's necklace. The one she'd given him on his 13th birthday. It dangled in the beam of the headlights, glinting in the rain. And then the man said, in a voice cold and certain, "Your son is waiting." The necklace swung in the headlights like a pendulum of truth, its silver chain catching droplets of rain. Ryan's necklace, the one Claire had clasped around her son's neck 15 years ago, whispering, "Never take it off." Now it was dangling from the hand of a stranger, and the stranger's words cut sharper than the storm around them. "Your son is waiting." Claire's breath caught. Her knees nearly buckled, but Mark steadied her with a rough grip. Keaton, however, didn't flinch. He smirked, as if the entire scene were theater arranged for him. "See," he murmured to Claire. "Proof. He's alive. Just not the boy you remember." Claire's voice shook. "Where is he? Where's Ryan?" The man with the necklace didn't answer. He simply gestured toward the SUV, the door swinging open like a silent invitation. Mark leaned close, whispering fiercely, "Don't. It's a trap." Claire turned on him, fury in her eyes. "You knew. You knew he was alive and you let me suffer all these years." "Clay." "No." Her voice cracked, but her determination was steel. "I'm not letting him slip away again." The men by the SUV didn't move, didn't speak. They waited, silent shadows under the storm. Finally, Claire took a step forward. Keaton chuckled low. "Good mother." The ride was silent. The SUV smelled faintly of leather and antiseptic. Rain streaked the tinted windows as the coastline disappeared behind them. Claire clutched the sneakers on her lap, the lightning bolt doodle faint but defiant. Mark sat rigid beside her, his fists clenched on his knees. Keaton rode opposite, his smile never fading. "You'll see him soon," Keaton said softly, almost soothing. "But don't expect him to run into your arms." Claire glared at him. "What did you do to him?" Keaton's grin widened. "Nothing you wouldn't have, if you'd been given the chance." Her stomach twisted. She didn't understand, but the cruelty in his voice told her she didn't want to. Not yet. The SUV stopped at a chain-link gate topped with razor wire. Beyond it loomed a warehouse, gray and faceless, surrounded by floodlights that hummed in the rain. Claire's pulse thundered. This wasn't a home. It wasn't a school. It was a prison. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and metal. The floors gleamed too clean, the walls too white. And then she heard it. A voice. Faint. Familiar. "Mom." Claire's heart lurched. She turned, and there he was. Ryan. Older, yes, but it was him. Same hazel eyes, though dulled. Same crooked smile, though hesitant. His hair fell longer now, and his shoulders were broader, but he was her boy. She rushed forward, tears spilling, until two guards stepped between them. Ryan's voice cracked. "Don't, Mom, please don't." Claire froze. "What do you mean, don't?" Ryan's gaze darted toward Keaton, then back to her. His lips trembled. "They'll hurt you if you try. They'll hurt both of us." Keaton stepped forward smoothly, almost paternal as he rested a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "He's right. Ryan understands the rules now." Claire's stomach churned. "Take your hands off him." But Ryan didn't pull away. Instead, he whispered, barely audible, "It's bigger than him, Mom. Bigger than all of us." Claire lunged toward the guards, but Mark grabbed her, pulling her back. "Stop," he hissed. "You'll get him killed." She whipped around. "You knew about this. You knew where he was." Mark's face twisted in anguish. "I didn't have a choice." Keaton watched, amused, his hand still heavy on Ryan's shoulder. "Families," he mused, "always the weakest link." Claire's voice cracked into a scream. "Ryan, fight, please." But Ryan's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "Mom, I already tried." The guards dragged Ryan down a corridor, his voice echoing as he called out, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Until it faded into silence. Claire collapsed to her knees, the sneakers slipping from her hands, the lightning bolt smeared with raindrops and tears. Keaton crouched beside her, his voice low and cruel. "Now you've seen him. Alive, as promised. But if you want him free." He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "You'll do exactly what we say." The guards yanked her to her feet and shoved her down the same corridor. But as she stumbled past the white doors, one cracked open just enough for her to glimpse what was inside. Not just Ryan. Dozens of boys. Rows of them. Silent. Watching with hollow eyes. And at the far end of the room, a boy who looked exactly like Ryan. Another Ryan. Claire's scream caught in her throat as the door slammed shut. For 15 years, Claire Monroe had dreamed of the day she might see her son again. But nothing, no nightmare, no whispered fear, prepared her for what she saw behind that white door. It wasn't just Ryan. It was another Ryan. And behind him, more. Her breath caught in her chest, her body refusing to move as the door snapped shut again. The image seared into her mind. Rows of boys, standing in silence. Each one eerily familiar. Each one wearing Ryan's face. The guard shoved her forward, breaking her trance. But her heart wouldn't stop pounding. What had they done to her son? They locked her in a small, sterile room. No windows, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint sting of bleach in the air. Mark was shoved in behind her, his face pale and drawn. She spun on him immediately. "What is this? What did I just see?" He pressed his hands to his face, trembling. "You weren't supposed to know. Not like this." Her voice rose to a scream. "Not supposed to know? They're making copies of our son." Mark's shoulders sagged. "It's not just Ryan. He was the first." Claire's stomach lurched. "The first what?" The door creaked open, and Keaton stepped inside, his calmness sharp against her hysteria. "You wanted answers, Claire. Now you're standing in them." Her fists clenched. "You're a monster." Keaton only smiled. "I'm a servant of something larger than myself." Ryan was special. Smarter, stronger, faster than his peers. They noticed. And when he vanished, Well, it wasn't a tragedy. It was an opportunity. Claire's voice cracked. You took my child. No, Keaton corrected softly. We multiplied him. He leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. The boy you call your son? He's alive, yes, but he's not the only one. He hasn't been for years. And the others, well, let's just say they've proven more obedient. Claire's eyes burned with tears. You can't just replace him. He's not a thing to be copied. Keaton's smirk widened. No, but here's the blueprint. Claire lunged, fury ripping through her grief, but Mark grabbed her arm before she reached Keaton. Don't! Mark hissed. You don't understand how far this goes. She yanked free, glaring at both men. I don't care how far it goes. I want my son back. Keaton's smile faded, replaced by something colder. Then you'll learn him. Starting now. He nodded to the guards. The door swung open again. And there, dragged into the room, was Ryan. The real Ryan. Claire rushed forward, but Ryan shrank back, his eyes wild. Mom, don't trust them, he shouted. One of the guards slammed a hand over his mouth, dragging him back against the wall. Keaton tilted his head. Still fighting. Still resisting. You see why the others are preferable. Claire's chest heaved. If you hurt him. Keaton raised a hand casually. Oh, we won't hurt him. That's not the plan. Then his gaze shifted, sharp and deliberate, landing squarely on Mark. You never told her, did you? Mark's face drained of color. Keaton, don't. Claire froze. Told me what? Keaton's smirk returned, razor thin. Ask him who signed the papers that made Ryan disappear. The room went silent, except for the muffled sound of Ryan's desperate cry. Keaton's words hit Claire like a blade. Ask him who signed the papers that made Ryan disappear. Her world spun, her chest tightening. She turned toward Mark, her ex-husband, her partner once in everything. And for the first time, she saw guilt written across his face like a confession. Mark, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. Tell me he's lying. Mark swallowed hard, his eyes refusing to meet hers. Tell me you didn't. I thought I was protecting you, he burst out, his voice breaking. Protecting us. Claire's stomach churned. By signing away our son. Ryan struggled against the guard's grip, his muffled cries filling the sterile room. Claire lunged at Mark, fists pounding his chest. You let them take him. You knew, and you said nothing. Mark grabbed her wrists, not in anger but desperation. Claire, listen. They came to me, said Ryan was in danger, that they'd make sure he lived if I agreed. I didn't know what they planned. Keaton chuckled darkly. Oh, he knew enough. Shut up. Mark snapped, his voice trembling. Claire shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You betrayed him. You betrayed me. Keaton stepped forward, circling them like a predator. Mark signed the consent forms, he said smoothly. We needed parental authorization. His name on those papers gave us Ryan, and every version that followed. Claire's throat burned. Consent forms? For what? Keaton leaned close, his cold smile sending a shiver through her. For progress. Ryan broke free from the guard for a moment, his voice cracking through the chaos. Mom, it wasn't just Dad. They tricked me too. They said I was helping kids like me. They said it was temporary. The guard yanked him back, but Claire had heard enough. Her son wasn't just stolen. He was convinced, manipulated into becoming the foundation for something monstrous. And Mark had signed the papers that allowed it. Claire turned on Mark again, her voice ragged. How could you? How could you hand him over to this? Mark's face crumpled. I thought they'd kill him if I refused. I thought it was the only way to keep him alive. Keaton's voice slithered through the air. And in a way, he was right. Ryan is alive. In many forms. Claire shook with fury. You don't own him. Keaton's smile sharpened. Don't I? He snapped his fingers. The white door opened again, and another Ryan stepped inside. This one looked older, stronger, his eyes cold, unblinking. He didn't flinch at the guards or the sterile lights. He stood tall, scanning Claire with something between recognition and indifference. Claire's breath caught. Ryan? But he didn't answer. Keaton's hand rested proudly on the boy's shoulder. Meet Subject 13, the perfected version. Claire staggered back, her body trembling. She wasn't looking at her son. She was looking at what they had made from him. The real Ryan shouted, his voice hoarse, Mom, don't let them. A guard slammed him to the ground, cutting him off. And then Subject 13 spoke for the first time, his voice eerily calm. They told me you'd come. They said when you did, I'd have to choose between you and him. Claire froze, her tears turning to ice. Choose between her son and his copy. Claire stood frozen. Before her, two boys. One, the son she had searched for across 15 agonizing years, bruised and trembling in a guard's grip. The other, a sharpened mirror, calm, strong, perfected, the version the organization claimed as theirs. And now, she was told to choose. Her heart screamed, her mind spun, and in that sterile white room, she knew, no matter what she decided, nothing would ever be the same again. Subject 13's voice was steady, unnervingly mature. They told me you would beg for him, he said, eyes fixed on Claire. That you would see me as less. That I should prove I am the better son. Claire's lips trembled. You're not less. You're not a mistake. But she pointed to Ryan. He's my child. My blood. My baby. 13 tilted his head, curious, almost wounded. And what am I? If I carry his memories, if I feel what he felt, don't I deserve love too? The words sliced through Claire. She saw not a monster, but a boy aching for belonging. Keaton watched with satisfaction, folding his arms. You see the brilliance? Even she cannot tell where motherhood ends and science begins. Claire turned on him, her fury unmasked. You used them. You twisted them into weapons. Children aren't yours to mold. But Keaton only smiled. Children have always been shaped by someone. Parents, teachers, leaders. We simply made the process efficient. Ryan, struggling against the guard, cried out, Mom, don't listen. He's lying. 13 doesn't feel. He's programmed to manipulate you. 13's gaze darkened, just for a second. Is that what you think of me, brother? The room thickened with silence. Claire stepped closer to 13, her voice softer now. I don't know what they told you, but I see it in your eyes. You're searching for the same thing Ryan always was. Someone to tell you that you matter. Someone to tell you that you're loved. 13's jaw tightened. His breath hitched. For the first time, the perfect mask cracked. Keaton barked, don't listen to her. She will never accept you. She came for him. You are a tool, nothing more. Claire snapped her head toward Keaton, her voice thunderous. No, you're the one who sees him as a tool. I see a boy, hurt, confused, longing. He doesn't need your perfection. He needs mercy. 13's chest rose and fell, his hands shaking. He looked between Ryan and Claire, and then, for the first time, His voice faltered. "If I let him go, what happens to me?" Claire reached out, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Then you come with us. Both of you. You're not experiments. You're sons. My love isn't divided, it grows." Keaton's face contorted with rage. "Enough!" He lunged forward, signaling the guards. But 13 moved first. With a sudden burst of strength, he turned on the guard restraining Ryan, slamming him into the wall. "Run!" he shouted. Claire grabbed Ryan's hand. Together, the three of them bolted through the door. The corridors echoed with alarms. Red lights flashed. Guards shouted down the halls. Claire's lungs burned, her grip tight around Ryan's trembling fingers. Behind her, 13 fought back attackers with precision, covering their escape. "Keep going," he yelled. They burst into a stairwell, the sharp smell of metal and concrete filling the air. At the top, an exit door. But just as they reached it, Keaton's voice bellowed from below. "You can run, but you cannot undo what has been made. The world will know them, with or without you." Claire shoved open the door, light flooding her vision. They were outside, free. Hours later, in the quiet of her small living room, Claire sat with Ryan leaning against her shoulder, his breath finally steady. Across from them, 13 sat rigid, hands folded, eyes cast downward. He looked powerful and broken all at once. Claire studied him. "You don't have to be who they said you were. You get to choose. Just like Ryan. Just like me." 13 looked up, a faint flicker of hope in his gaze. "And if I fail?" Claire smiled through her tears. "Then you learn. Because failing doesn't make you worthless. It makes you human." Narration carried her words like a whisper of truth. In life, we are all shaped by forces we cannot control. Families, systems, expectations. But in the end, our worth is not in what others make of us. It's in the choices we dare to make for ourselves. Ryan squeezed her hand, his voice soft. "I thought I was lost forever. But I wasn't. You never stopped looking." Claire kissed his forehead. "Love doesn't quit. Not after 15 years. Not ever." And for the first time in years, there was peace. People may try to define you, but your true power lies in defining yourself. Love isn't divided by who we include, it multiplies. Failing doesn't make you weak. Hiding from the truth does. Mercy builds bridges where fear builds walls. Even when hope seems stolen, love has a way of finding its way back home. When life presents you with impossible choices, remember, the answer is rarely found in fear or force. It's found in love, in compassion, and in the courage to see humanity even in the places others overlook.
Some cases find justice, others are left in silence. But together, we can keep their stories alive. If you felt the weight of this mystery, make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell, so you'll always be here when the next truth surfaces. Every voice matters. Every story counts. Step closer, behind the crime,